My name is Tom. I'm a software developer in my 30s, and I guess if I had to summarize my personality in one word, it would be predictable. Not in a bad way, at least not to me. I've always been the kind of guy who pays bills on time, gets his oil changed before the sticker says to, and double-checks the locks before bed. I show up, I stay late if needed, I keep things running. Friends have called me solid, reliable, the kind of guy you can build a life with. Sophie used to say that, too. There was a time when she said it like it was the greatest compliment in the world. That Friday night, I was at one of those semi-fancy corporate dinners, our company's annual mixer for employees and their spouses or plus ones, held this year at an old waterfront restaurant along the Willamette River in Portland. The building used to be a cannery in the 1920s, all exposed brick and black ironwork, now dressed up with strings of Edison bulbs and smooth jazz playing live on the terrace. A violinist and upright bassist were tucked in the corner, doing their best to make sod and Coldplay sound sophisticated. The air smelled like cedar smoke and seafood. Waiters wove through the crowd with trays of grilled shrimp skewers, bacon-wrapped scallops, tiny filet medallions on toast, and cocktails so complicated they came with edible flowers. I had my hand wrapped around a classic, a bourbon neat, always the same. Sophie was supposed to be there. She texted me earlier that afternoon. Meeting is dragging. Don't start without me. I smiled when I saw the message. I even typed a reply, something cheeky about saving her an oyster and a dance, but I deleted it before hitting send. It felt too sentimental for a corporate thing. I figured I'd just say it in person when she showed up. I made small talk with a few coworkers, some from DevOps, some from design. Smiled, nodded. Listened to the usual safe zone conversations about real estate, pets, the latest gadget drops. I must have checked the entrance 10 or 12 times while pretending not to. Each time, a little flicker of anticipation sparked in my chest, thinking I'd see Sophie walk in, hair done up, that subtle perfume she wears in the evenings. The one that smells like jasmine and summer rain. She always made these events bearable, even fun. So when I spotted her, I smiled automatically. That small rush of relief and affection, you know the one. The feeling that says, ah, there she is, my person. But the feeling lasted all of 2 seconds. Because she wasn't walking in. She was already there. I froze, halfway through a sip of bourbon, eyes scanning the terrace. She was seated under the awning at the far end of the patio, facing the water, legs crossed, glass of wine in one hand. Her head was tilted slightly back in laughter, her body angled toward the man sitting next to her. Ryan. He was the new manager. Transferred from Seattle last quarter. Charismatic, fast-talking, always cracking jokes at meetings, always standing just a little too close to people when he spoke. He had a reputation for being personable, which is corporate code for charming and just vague enough to avoid HR complaints. I never had anything personal against the guy. He was good at his job and he kept things moving. But seeing him there with Sophie, seeing them like that, did something to me I didn't expect. They were sitting closer than necessary. The kind of close you don't even notice until you're forced to. His hand brushed hers as he passed her something across the table, and instead of pulling away, she let it linger. Not long, but long enough. The kind of pause that makes your stomach twist, even if your brain hasn't caught up yet. She was wearing the blue dress, the one I gave her for our anniversary last year. Midnight blue, simple but elegant, the fabric hugging her just right. When she opened the box, she'd said, "It feels like something Audrey Hepburn would wear on a date in Paris." That night, we drank too much wine and slow danced in our kitchen. She said she felt beautiful in that dress, and now she was wearing it for someone else. I don't remember walking toward them, but somehow my feet carried me across the terrace. I didn't even realize I still had the glass of wine I'd gotten for her. Pinot Noir, Oregon local, her favorite. I had planned to meet her at the entrance with it, maybe kiss her on the cheek, whisper something dumb like, "You clean up too well. HR might file a complaint." But there she was, already halfway through a different glass. Already smiling, laughing, settled. Ryan said something I couldn't quite hear. Sophie tilted her head toward him, brushing her hair behind her ear. That small, subtle gesture she always did when she wanted someone's full attention. Then Ryan leaned back in his chair, gestured toward someone I couldn't see, and said just loud enough for me to catch it. Tom? Oh yeah, he's reliable. Like an old fridge, always running but nobody notices. And Sophie laughed. Not politely, not nervously. She laughed like it was funny, like she agreed. I stopped, right there, about 5 feet from the table. My hand clenched the stem of the wine glass just a little too tight. Not enough to break it, but enough to feel the tension in my knuckles. For a second, I considered turning around. Just walking back the way I came and pretending I didn't see any of it. Pretending it was just a weird coincidence. Just Ryan being Ryan and Sophie being gracious. Pretending she hadn't forgotten to look for me. But I didn't turn around. I walked right up to their table. Neither of them noticed me at first. They were too busy laughing at my expense. And in that moment I wasn't even angry, not yet. Just numb. Like I'd walked into the wrong movie halfway through and was trying to catch up. I placed the glass of wine on the table in front of Sophie. She startled slightly, her smile faltering as she looked up. "Oh," she said. "That's it. Just oh. No smile. No hi, babe. No. I've been looking for you." Ryan raised his eyebrows like he was surprised to see me there at all. I didn't say a word. Not to him. Not to her. Just turned and walked away. I didn't want to see what came next. Didn't want to see if she reached for the wine. Didn't want to see if she leaned back toward him again. I just knew I needed space. Time to process the sinking feeling in my gut. The river sparkled to my left. Boats drifted lazily across the water, lanterns glowing. The violinist had shifted to something romantic, almost cinematic. A couple nearby was slow dancing on the far end of the deck, laughing quietly. And me? I stood there alone, hands in my pockets, staring out into the dark current, wondering how long ago this had started. Not the moment, not Ryan, the distance. I didn't go back to our table after that. I spent the rest of the evening nursing another bourbon, leaning against the far rail of the deck, watching the reflection of string lights dance on the river. The conversations around me blurred into background noise. Soft laughter, clinking glasses, someone talking about quarterly goals like we weren't standing in one of the most quietly romantic places in the city. And Sophie, she never came looking for me. She didn't call out across the terrace, didn't excuse herself from Ryan to check on me, didn't text a simple, "Where are you?" Nothing. She stayed under that awning, kept laughing, kept drinking, kept being someone I didn't quite recognize. I didn't say a word the entire car ride home. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care to ask. She scrolled through her phone at stoplights, replied to a message with a grin that lingered even after she locked the screen. I wanted to ask who it was, wanted to test her, but the words felt too heavy in my throat. Instead, I stared out the passenger window at the blur of headlights on the wet pavement. When we got home, she kissed me on the cheek like everything was fine and said, "Thanks for waiting, babe. You're sweet." Then she went upstairs and shut the bedroom door. I stood there in the kitchen, still wearing my blazer, wondering when exactly I'd stopped being her person and started being just the man who brings her wine. The next morning, I told myself I was overthinking. Everyone's awkward at work events. She probably hadn't even heard Ryan's joke. Maybe she didn't realize how it sounded. Maybe her laugh was just a reaction, a social tick. People laugh at things they don't mean all the time, right? But deep down, something had shifted. I started seeing things I hadn't noticed before. Or maybe I had, and I'd just chosen to look away. Sophie had always been stylish, but lately, her outfits were different. More fitted, more deliberate. She started wearing makeup even on casual errands. Lipstick when she went to just grab coffee with Claire. Highlighter for a quick Target run. At first, I chalked it up to confidence. I told myself I was happy for her. But the thought kept creeping in. Who was all that effort really for? She began going to evening workouts. Spin class, Pilates, HIIT, whatever acronym was trending that week. She'd leave around 6, come home around 9, flushed and smiling, raving about some new instructor who really knew how to push limits. But I never saw a gym bag. No gear in the car. No water bottle, even. And then there was her phone. It was always face down. Always on silent. Always clutched close, even during dinner. If it buzzed, she'd glance at it quickly, then put it away like it didn't matter. Like I didn't matter enough to wonder. One night, I asked casually, "Hey, how was spin?" She hesitated just a little too long before answering. "Tough. Brutal, actually. My legs are jelly." But she wasn't sweating. Her hair was perfect. She smelled like expensive perfume, not the gym. Not like effort. Not like exertion. Like a night out. Still, I didn't confront her. I told myself I was being paranoid, letting jealousy paint things in the worst possible light. We'd been married 6 years. She wouldn't lie to me, right? But doubt is a funny thing. Once it's in the house, it doesn't leave. It lingers in the corners, under the bed, behind every quiet pause and distracted smile. The distance grew. She stopped laughing at my jokes. The dumb, dad-tier puns she used to roll her eyes at and secretly love. We'd be watching something on TV, and instead of curling into me like she used to, she'd sit at the far end of the couch, legs pulled up, phone in hand, screen glowing in the dark. If I asked what she was reading, she'd mumble something vague. Work emails, Instagram, a recipe. She used to fall asleep with her head on my chest. Now she turned away from me every night without fail. One Friday, I brought home her favorite Thai takeout, green curry, jasmine rice, mango sticky rice for dessert. I lit a candle, tried to make a night of it. She walked in, saw the table set, and blinked. "Oh, you didn't text me." "I wanted to surprise you," I said. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "That's sweet, babe, but I already ate. Had a late lunch with the team." I stared at the 2 steaming plates. "We always do Friday dinners." "Do we?" she said, distracted, already pulling out her phone. "I mean, I guess we used to." That sentence stuck with me. We used to talk, used to laugh, used to share a life. I started watching more closely, not in a creepy stalker way. I didn't go through her phone or follow her around, but I paid attention. When she left, I checked the clock. When she came home, I noted the time. I noticed when she started putting extra effort into her appearance but didn't mention it. I noticed when she started talking about work more often, but only one person, Ryan. Ryan said this. Ryan cracked me up today. Ryan bought donuts for the whole team. Ryan's wife is apparently living in another state. Poor guy. One night, I asked, "Do you like working with him?" She looked up from her wine. "Ryan? Yeah, he's great." "Why?" "No reason. You just talk about him a lot." She paused, then shrugged. "I guess. He's easy to talk to." "Easier than me?" I didn't say that part out loud. That weekend, we were invited to a backyard barbecue at one of my coworkers' homes. Sophie begged off, claiming she had so much laundry to catch up on. But I went anyway. I needed the distraction. Halfway through the night, a guy from accounting, a harmless gossip named Joel, brought up Ryan. "He's settling in fine, I guess," Joel said. "Your wife's been showing him the ropes, huh?" I tried to keep my face neutral. "What do you mean?" Joel raised his eyebrows. "You didn't know?" He mentioned Sophie's been helping him get acclimated, coffee runs, late nights finishing proposals, that kind of thing. Seemed real appreciative. "Yeah," I said slowly. "They've been working on a few projects." Joel smirked. "More than a few from what it sounds like." He called her his go-to. Said he doesn't know how he'd survive the new job without her. That sentence echoed in my mind the entire drive home. His go-to. The way he said it, casual like it meant nothing, only made it worse. When I got back, Sophie was watching a movie on the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, phone in hand. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, how was it?" "Fine," I said. Joel was there. "Ugh," she laughed. "He always smells like gin and too much cologne." "Funny," I said, sitting beside her. "He said Ryan called you his go-to, that you've been helping him settle in." She froze for a second, then smiled. "Oh yeah, I mean, I've just been showing him where things are who's who." Nothing crazy. I nodded, pretending it didn't feel like a stone in my gut. You two seem close. She didn't deny it. Just looked at the TV and said, "He's a good guy. He listens." I didn't say anything else that night. Couldn't. I just sat there, on the opposite end of the couch, watching some bland romantic comedy while the woman I married scrolled through her phone, oblivious to how far she'd already drifted. The worst part? I still loved her. But love doesn't work when it's one way. It's strange how the truth doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes, it seeps in quietly, one drop at a time, until suddenly you're drowning and can't remember how it started. The night I knew for sure wasn't loud. No fights, no slammed doors. Just a silent Saturday with clouds hanging low over Portland, the kind that keeps the city in a moody gray haze. Sophie was in the kitchen that morning, sipping coffee and scrolling her phone like usual, wearing her running leggings and a loose sweatshirt that barely touched her frame. She looked normal. Just another weekend. "I'm gonna hit the gym," she said. "Spin class at 11, then maybe some errands. Want me to grab anything?" I shook my head. "Nah, we're good on groceries." She smiled, kissed me lightly on the cheek, and walked out the door. And that should have been it. Another forgettable Saturday. But I didn't believe her. I didn't want to feel that way, not about the woman I married. But something inside me had shifted over the past few weeks. I tried to ignore it, tried to trust, but it gnawed at me constantly. The laugh that lasted too long. The phone she guarded like state secrets. The ghost she became in our home. I waited 10 minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys. I told myself I wasn't going to follow her, that I just wanted air, that maybe I'd grab coffee, walk by the river, clear my head. But my car somehow ended up trailing hers downtown. She took a different route than the gym, turned left when she should have gone straight. Then another right, toward the Pearl District, where the streets are lined with cafes, galleries, and boutique wine bars that open before noon for people who don't mind day drinking. I hung back 3 cars behind. My heart wasn't pounding the way I expected it to. Felt still, like I already knew what I was going to find. She pulled into a metered space outside a place called Alder and Vine. A cozy, overpriced wine bar that tried to pretend it wasn't a bar by using candles and acoustic playlists. I parked half a block down and waited. She got out, looked around. Not like someone sneaking, but someone comfortable. She ran a hand through her hair, fluffed it a bit, adjusted her leggings like she cared how they looked. Then Ryan arrived. I recognized his car, a dark blue Audi. It pulled up to the curb with the kind of confidence only people like him had. He stepped out, crisp as always, wearing that smug business casual look he seemed to live in. He spotted her, smiled wide, and approached like he'd done it 100 times before. They didn't hug. That would have made it easier, like some kind of smoking G** and I could point at. But they didn't need to. It was the way they stood close. The way she tilted her chin up toward him. The way his hand brushed her lower back as they walked inside. I followed, slowly keeping my distance. Through the tall front windows, I could see them take a table near the back, half obscured by a decorative wine rack. The lighting was soft, too soft for a place that was supposed to be about Merlot. It felt like a scene staged for people pretending to be something they weren't. They were talking, close, smiling. She leaned in. He touched her wrist. It wasn't wild or reckless. It wasn't some passionate embrace. It was subtle, mate, familiar, and that's what hurt the most. Not the affair itself, at least not yet, but the comfort they had with each other. The unspoken rhythm, like they'd done this before, like they knew the dance. I stood there in the rain for 5 minutes, maybe 10. I didn't feel cold, or rage, or heartbreak, just quiet. A kind of silence that wrapped around my chest and told me, "You were right." They were still sitting there when I walked back to my car. I didn't need to see more. Back home, I waited. She got in around 2:30, cheeks flushed like she'd just finished a workout. She smelled like wine and that same floral perfume she used to save for date nights. She dropped her bag on the counter and smiled. "Spin class nearly K** led me today." I nodded. "Glad you survived." She didn't catch the edge in my voice. "I'm gonna shower," she said, already heading upstairs. I watched her go, wondering how long she'd been lying so easily. How many times she had smiled and touched my shoulder and asked about my day while erasing hers. I didn't confront her. Not then. Not the next day either. I waited. Because that's what I'd become, the man who waits. A week later, I finally did what I swore I wouldn't. I went through her phone. It happened on a Tuesday night. She'd fallen asleep early on the couch, wrapped in that same blanket. TV still playing some reality dating show she barely watched anymore. Her phone was charging on the coffee table, unlocked. No password, I had never needed one before. It was right there. Everything I didn't want to find. Not full-blown S**XTS or photos. She was smarter than that. But there were texts. Strings of messages from Ryan, most of them benign on the surface. Inside jokes. Missed you at lunch. Hope your spin class wasn't too brutal. One said, had a dream about you again. Still smiling. She had replied, stop it. You're gonna get me in trouble. A wink emoji. There were calendar entries too, labeled with codes like R-call or alt-brunch. She had masked it all in casual shorthand, but it was there. The pattern. The overlap. The time she told me she was working late was the same evening they both had a dinner blocked on their calendars. I took **TS, sent them to myself. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't burn. Just numb again. The next morning, I sat across from her at the kitchen table as she scrolled aimlessly on her phone. I watched her fingers move. Her nails painted a soft pink. She didn't notice me watching. Sophie, I said quietly. She looked up. Yeah. How long has it been going on? She blinked. What? I didn't raise my voice. Didn't slam the phone down. I just stared. With Ryan, I said. How long? Her face went pale, like someone pulled the floor out from under her. I don't know what you... Don't lie. She swallowed hard, set her phone down slowly. There was a long pause. Then, it's not what you think. I nodded. Okay, then tell me what it is. More silence. Her eyes darted toward the window, like maybe she could escape out of it. I never meant for anything to happen, she whispered. But it did. She nodded. Barely. How long? Her lips parted, closed, then opened again. A couple months. I stared down at the table, at the grain in the wood, at the tiny dent where she once dropped her coffee mug laughing at something dumb I said. A couple months, I repeated. And you didn't think I'd notice? She didn't answer. Her hands were trembling now. I followed you last weekend, I said, to Alder and Vine. I saw you with him. The blood drained from her face. Sophie, I said, voice low, you lied to my face. Every day. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, eyes wet now. Then you shouldn't have done it. She nodded slowly. I'm sorry. But the thing is, sorry doesn't mean anything when it's post-truth. When the damage has already been done and the apology is just debris floating on the wreckage. I stood up, walked out of the kitchen, went upstairs, closed the door. She didn't follow. That night, she slept in the guest room. Not because I asked, but because we both knew something unspoken had happened between us. Something that couldn't be undone. Not a fight, not a dramatic breakup. Just the quiet collapse of something sacred. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't miss her beside me. Because she hadn't really been there for a long time. Sophie didn't move out after I found out. She didn't pack a bag, didn't run to Ryan, didn't disappear in the night. That would have been easier, honestly. Cleaner. Instead, she stayed. Just stayed. As if nothing had really happened. That first morning after the truth came out, she made coffee like usual. Poured me a cup, slid it across the counter like she always did. I stared at it, still too raw to speak. She sat across from me, hair damp from the shower, scrolling through her phone like we were still some normal couple starting their day. Do you want toast or anything? She asked. I shook my head. She nodded like she understood. Like this was just a bad morning. Like we'd bounce back. I watched her butter her own toast, and all I could think was how absurd it was that people could do this. sit across from someone they've betrayed, chew, swallow, breathe, as if nothing's broken. We didn't talk about it again that day, or the next. We moved around each other like roommates with opposite shifts. No yelling, no tears, just avoidance. I stayed late at work, took long walks at night. She went to bed early, or so she said. We shared a roof but not a life. When I looked at her, I saw a stranger wearing my wife's skin. She looked the same. Still beautiful, still graceful, still Sophie. But something behind her eyes had shut off. Or maybe it had always been off and I was just now seeing it. Every little thing began to feel rehearsed. The way she'd say good morning with a forced softness, like she was auditioning for the role of devoted wife. The way she'd pretend to laugh at whatever sitcom was playing in the background. The way she touched my shoulder gently in the kitchen, like a reminder that, see, we're okay, right? But we weren't okay. Not even close. One evening, I walked into the living room and found her on the couch, watching one of those cooking competition shows we used to binge together. She was curled up with a blanket, eating popcorn. Her phone was in her lap, but when I walked in, she turned it face down and slid it out of view. That small motion, so subtle, so automatic, made something inside me turn cold. I sat at the other end of the couch, a full 2 cushions away. She glanced at me briefly, then looked back at the screen. Want some? She asked, offering the bowl like a peace treaty. No thanks, I said. She didn't push, just kept watching, kept chewing, kept pretending. Later that night, she went upstairs before me, said she was tired. When I finally came to bed, she was already facing the wall, the lamp on her nightstand still glowing. I got in without a word. She didn't turn around, didn't reach for me, just lay there breathing softly. The silence between us wasn't angry. It was worse than that. It was hollow, like standing in an abandoned house and hearing the echoes of lives that used to matter. The next morning, she left a post-it on the fridge. Work thing this weekend. Might need to stay late. So, I stared at it for a while. Not because I believed it, but because I couldn't believe she thought I would believe it. It was always the weekends now. That was her escape hatch. Work, errands. Claire needs help moving. I promised I'd help with a baby shower. All these suddenly urgent plans that never existed before. She no longer asked me to join her. No longer mentioned where she was going. She just disappeared and came back when the sun was down, smiling like she was trying to sell the idea of normal. I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't care. Because I already knew the answers, and I couldn't take hearing her lie again. There's a kind of death that happens before the papers are signed. When 2 people stop seeing each other. When the conversations die out. When the light in the kitchen changes and even the hum of the refrigerator feels like loneliness. I used to find comfort in our routines. Sunday pancakes, Thursday laundry night, grocery trips where we'd argue over which brand of pasta sauce was better and end up buying both. Now those things were gone. Silent. Ghosts in the walls. The first Sunday after everything unraveled, I woke up alone. The house was quiet, too quiet. I walked downstairs and found a note on the counter. Went to yoga. Might grab lunch after. Don't wait. Smiley face. The smiley face at the end felt like a slap. I made pancakes for 1. Ate them standing at the counter. Washed the plate. Stared out the window at the gray sky and wondered if this was what divorce felt like. Living together, side by side, while everything else falls apart. That night, she came home humming softly. I was on the porch, nursing a beer, watching the streetlights flicker on. She joined me without asking. Sat on the swing, legs crossed under her, glass of wine in hand. It's getting colder, she said. Fall's really creeping in. I nodded. Yeah. She took a sip. Then, I miss how we used to sit out here. Remember? I didn't answer. She set her wine down. Tom, but then stopped herself. Changed course. Did you ever think we'd end up like this? I looked at her. Really looked. Her face was softer in the porch light. Less guarded. But I didn't trust it. I didn't know what version of her I was seeing anymore. No, I said. I didn't. She nodded, bit her lip. Me neither. But she had ended up there first. I was just catching up. She reached for my hand, and I let her hold it. Felt strange. Like shaking hands with an old friend you used to know before they changed their name and address and heart. That moment passed quickly. Too quickly. A few days later, she started leaving earlier in the mornings. Not suspiciously early, just enough to avoid overlap. She'd already be gone when I got out of the shower, her perfume still lingering in the bathroom like a haunting. She started locking her phone. Started showering before bed. Not in the mornings like before. Stopped singing to herself in the kitchen. Stopped asking about my day. Stopped saying, I love you. One night, she was sitting on the floor folding laundry. She held up one of my old college t-shirts, the kind I usually wore on lazy Saturdays. Do you still want this? She asked. I looked up from my laptop. What? This shirt. It's got holes. I stared at it. I've had that shirt for over a decade. Yeah. But it's kind of falling apart. I took it from her hands. A lot of things are. She didn't reply. We went to bed in silence again that night. Her on her side. Me on mine. Like strangers trapped in the same snow globe. Every now and then she'd make these small attempts. She'd ask if I wanted to go out to eat. She'd suggest a movie. One night she tried to initiate something physical, placing her hand lightly on my chest as we lay in bed. I didn't push her away, but I didn't respond either. It wasn't that I didn't want to feel close to her. It was that I couldn't lie to myself the way she could. Touch without trust feels like performance. I didn't want to be in a performance anymore. Eventually, we stopped pretending. Entire days passed where we barely spoke. A few words here and there. Did you pay the water bill? Trash goes out tonight. There's food in the fridge. Cold logistics. Nothing more. And yet she stayed. That confused me. She didn't leave. Didn't ask for a separation. Didn't bring up counseling or divorce. It was like she expected us to just keep drifting, room to room, pretending the foundation wasn't cracked straight through the middle. Or maybe she was waiting for me to say it. To admit out loud what we both knew but weren't brave enough to voice. That we weren't a couple anymore. We were co-owners of a dying ritual. A few nights later, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Not loud. Just a quiet sob muffled through the door. I stood outside for a moment, unsure what to do. A part of me wanted to knock, to go in and wrap my arms around her, to say, we can fix this. Let's try. But a bigger part of me knew the truth. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for herself. For what she'd broken. For what she thought she could keep pretending to hold on to. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to fix it. I turned around. Went to bed alone. She came in an hour later. Didn't say a word. And the house fell quiet again. It was Sophie's idea. Out of nowhere, one Thursday evening after another dinner eaten in near silence, she looked up from her salad and said, maybe we should go to the cabin. I blinked. What cabin? Our old one. The place in Idaho we used to go to in the fall. I hadn't thought about that place in years. A small rental we'd found on a whim during our second year of marriage. Wood-burning fireplace. No cell service. A porch with a view of pine trees and nothing else. We used to go every October, drink hot cider, hike a trail or two, sleep under layers of quilts. It was the kind of quiet that felt healing. She reached across the table and brushed her fingers against mine. I think we need it. There was a flicker in her eyes. I didn't recognize it at first. Maybe hope, maybe guilt, maybe both. She was trying, I'll give her that. Or pretending to try. Maybe she wanted to feel something again. Maybe she wanted to give us a final test run before walking away with a clear conscience. I nodded slowly. Okay. We left that Saturday. The drive was 5 hours of forced comfort. She played a road trip playlist she'd made back when we still made road trip playlists. The Head and the Heart, Bon Iver, some Fleetwood Mac. I used to love those songs. Now they just reminded me of something that had once been beautiful and simple, and now felt like a museum exhibit behind glass. She tried to make conversation. I answered when I had to. We talked about the trees changing color, the weather forecast, traffic on I-84. Small things, safe things. When we finally pulled up to the cabin, it looked exactly the same. A bit more weathered maybe, but still the same red-brown siding, same creaky steps, same old pine needles blanketing the ground. Inside, nothing had changed. Same threadbare couch, same thick curtains, same mason jar mugs. Sophie walked through the rooms slowly, touching the walls like they were sacred. "Feels like stepping into a time capsule," she said. I nodded. She smiled and turned to me. "Let's try, okay?" And I wanted to. I really did. That first evening, we unpacked in silence. I took the smaller suitcase. She brought her favorite oversized sweater, the one I used to steal on cold mornings. I noticed she still wore the same perfume, and that surprised me more than it should have. I guess I'd assumed she had changed everything by now. We had soup from a can and grilled cheese. I made it. She lit a candle. We ate at the little wooden table facing the window. No music, just the sound of wind outside. After dinner, she poured us both glasses of wine and turned on one of the old DVDs left at the cabin. A romantic comedy from the early 2000s. The kind we used to quote lines from during road trips. The kind we'd seen at least 10 times. "Still remember every word," she said, laughing nervously. I didn't respond. Halfway through the movie, she curled up next to me on the couch, tentatively, testing the water, her head on my shoulder. For a moment, I let her stay there. And for a moment, I almost felt something. But then I remembered the wine bar, her laugh, her silence when I asked how long. The nights she came home smelling like someone else's life. And it all went cold again. She must have felt the shift. She pulled back slowly and pretended to stretch, then stayed curled at the opposite end of the couch for the rest of the movie. We went to bed in silence. The bed felt smaller than I remembered. Or maybe we were just further apart. She faced the window. I stared at the ceiling. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke to the sound of her crying. Not loud, just small, soft sniffles. I didn't move, didn't reach for her. I just listened, eyes open in the dark. By morning, she was already up, sitting on the porch wrapped in her sweater, sipping coffee and staring at the trees. I joined her without a word, sat beside her. We watched the wind move through the pines like waves on a green ocean. She looked at me after a long while and said, "Do you think we'll be okay?" I didn't answer.